So this is elementary algebra 6.2a, factoring trinomials. And what we're going to do today is kind of similar to what we did in 6.1, where we are taking the answer, or we are given the answer, and we're supposed to come up with, I guess, the question, kind of like Jeopardy, where you're given an answer and you're trying to figure out where that answer came from. So we did some like 3x plus 12, and then what we did is we pulled the 3 out and had an x plus 4, and those are the two factors that we multiply to get our product here. So what we're doing is the same thing. We're trying to find the factors. In fact, when we say find the factors, the question they'll ask you in the homework is factor this expression. So example 1 is an example of a trinomial. Trinomial means it has 1, 2, 3 terms, tri, and what we're trying to do is find out what we multiplied together and did the FOIL method basically in order to get that. And there's a certain procedure that we go through in order to make that work. Okay, so first thing we do is we make 2 parentheses. When there is a 1 in front, that's the leading coefficient, the number that's in front of the first term. It leads the way there. All right, so when you have a leading coefficient of 1, all you have to do is put an x there and an x there, because what we're doing is, remember FOIL? What are our first 2 numbers that we multiply in order to get that? And it ends up being x times x. All right, so what we're trying to do here is fill in the rest of this. So what we're doing is we're looking for a number that goes here, and a number that goes here, and the sign that goes here, and the sign that goes there. All right, so 2 things have to be true in order to find not only the sign of each one of these numbers that goes here and here, but the numbers themselves. So let's get started. Here's what we do. We say, okay, I need to find 2 numbers. Then when I multiply them, I get a positive 12. Don't forget the sign. So the factors of 12. Let's see, 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 4 and 3. I think those are the only options that when I multiply those together, I get 12. All right, so I find the factors of 12. What 2 numbers can I multiply together to get 12? And I list them there. And then I look at this 8 and say, all right, which one of these add up to be 8? Well, the 6 and the 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. 6 plus 2 is 8. So what I've discovered is I'm looking for 2 numbers when multiplied together give me a positive 12, and added together give me a positive 8. Okay? And we figured that out. It's 6 and 2. And are both of those positive? If I multiply a positive 6 times a positive 2, do I get a positive 12? Yes. But what if these were negative? If I multiply a negative 6 times a negative 2, do I get a positive 12? Yes. But when I add a negative 6 and a negative 2, I do not get a positive 8. I get a negative 8. So I know that these have to be a positive. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 plus 2 is 8. This is the factor. So if I did the FOIL method, I would get this back. Okay, so let's do the FOIL method. First would be x times x. Outside would be x 2 times x. Inside would be 6 times x. And last would be 6 times 2. Add those 2 together, I get my 8x. So there I go. I get that same answer back. So that's what we're doing. And of course, you know, like always happens in math, they start out with the easy ones and then they kill you with the harder ones. So let's start getting progressively a little bit more difficult here with example 2. So there's example 2. So first step, find 2 numbers multiplied to give us 12. Those are my options. Add it up, give us 7. So there we go right there. All right, remember the parentheses that we make? If there's a 1 in front of there, we just put an x there and an x there. All right, now we know we get a 3 and a 4 because multiply those together and you get 12, add them up and you get 7. But I not only want to add them up and get 7, I want to add them up and get negative 7. And when I multiply them, I want to get a positive 12. So somewhere in here, there's got to be a negative because I can't get a negative if both 3 and the 4 are positive. So what if I make one of them positive and one of them negative? Do I get a negative answer when I add them? Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So that's not the answer I want. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, and I need a positive 12. So I'm going to have to make a little bit of a change here. What if I make this negative and this negative? Now when I multiply negative 3 times negative 4, I get a positive 12. And when I add negative 3 to negative 4, I get a negative 7. So there's my factor, x minus 3 and x minus 4, to this trinomial right here. Okay? So they will continue to get a little tricky here, so let's just keep going. Okay, so we're going to look at the negative 15. So what can I multiply to get 15? Just really two numbers. But I'm not interested in a 15, I'm interested in negative 15. So negative 3 times positive 5 gives me 15, but so does positive 3 and negative 5. And so does 15 and times negative 1, or negative 15 times 1. So see, even though these are the same numbers, because the signs are different, I have to list all my possible options. All right, so each one of these multiplied gives me a negative 15. And the next step is added, which one gives me a negative 2. Okay, negative 3 plus 5 gives me a positive 2. A 3 plus a negative 5 gives me a negative 2. So that's the one I want. So I'll just put a 3 and a negative 5 there, and I'm done. Okay? So, not too terribly difficult yet. Well, let's keep going. Maybe we'll find that these aren't so terrible. I don't know. I guess each one of you has a different math skill. And some of these that are killing some students may come easy to you, and vice versa. So one of the things that I found as far as math students are concerned is you may struggle really badly with one type of math, but then another kind of math goes really, really easy. Now, when I was a kid, I struggled with this section. I understand it now because over the years I've had better and better math teachers to teach this in a way that's like, okay, now it makes sense to me. But man, back when I was a kid, I had no idea what I was doing hardly. Okay, so if I need to get a negative answer here, two numbers multiplied together give me a negative. I have to list all my possibilities. So negative 18 times 1 or 18 times negative 1. What else do I have? 9 and negative 2 or negative 9 times positive 2. What else? I've got a 6 and a negative 3, or a negative 6 and a 3. Those are my only options. All right, and you'll get to the point where you're just going to be able to look at this and go, okay, I need a positive 3 when I add them, a negative 18. So must be 6 and negative 3. And I have one right there. Because, all right, and again, I just put an x here and an x here. Two numbers multiplied together to give 18, added give me a positive 3x. This one added gives me a positive 3x. This one gives me a negative 18, but it gives me a negative 3 when I add them. So I'm going to go to plus 6 here and a minus 3 here. Now, one thing to consider, I could have put the 3 here and the 6 here and put the negative here in like that. Doesn't matter what order you put these in, as long as they're the exact same thing in each parenthesis. Okay, it doesn't matter what order they go in, because multiplication, 3 times 2 is the same as 2 times 3. So it doesn't matter about the order. All right, so we're going to keep chugging away here. Let's see. Factoring trinomial. See, they give you this rule, top of page 397. And sometimes I don't like the rules because then if I forget one of them, I'm lost. And this way I just did it. you can kind of figure it out. But they say, if the last number is positive, then the numbers in the factors, well, it's just a lot of stuff to remember. If you want to write it down, write that rule down in your notes, and then you've got it because you can use it on the test. But if you just kind of like following what I'm doing makes it easier, then that's good too. Okay, so notice we've got a big glitch here. I started out with an x. I have an 8x, but then they throw in a y, and over here they throw in a y, and these are the ones that always used to get me. All right, so one of the nice things about me as a teacher is I had a really, really hard time in these math classes. And I think I was just young and immature and didn't try very hard. If it didn't come the first time, I gave up. And then I got married, and then started having kids, and then decided to go back to school to be a math teacher. And it's like I started getting A's because I decided that if I was going to get this stuff, I was going to have to work my tail off, and I did. And it started clicking. But I get those of you that really struggle, because I struggled too. So hopefully I can explain this in a way that is going to help you. Okay, so let's make our two signs here. Let's put an x there and an x there, because when I multiply those two, I need to get this x squared there. So I just put in two things, and in this case x's, so when I multiply, I get that. So now I need to get a positive 12y squared. I need to find two numbers that when I multiply, I get 12y squared, and when I add, I get that. So my options here are 12y and 1y, 3y and 4y. What else do I have? 6y and 2y. Now when I multiply each one of these, I get 12y squared, which is what I want over here. What happens when I add these? I get 8y. Okay, I get 8y. Okay, and that's really all I'm concerned with is the y, because I have an x here, so that means the x is going to show up here, and I'll show you why once we get this put into two binomials. So I've got a 6y and a 2y. Now let's do the FOIL method, and I'll show you how this x shows up. Multiply those two, and I get x squared. Multiply outside, and I get 2xy. So see how that x just popped up there? Now when I do the inside, I'm going to get plus 6xy. And then when I do the last, I'm going to get 12y squared. So when I add these together, I get 8xy. So when they give you a problem like this, ignore this term right here if it's the same as this. If you ignore this x here, and it's the same as this, and there's an x here, it will show up. You don't have to include it as one of the numbers you're looking for. Multiply to get this, add to get this middle term here, minus whatever letter is here that is also here. Does that make sense? You don't have to worry about this x. It will show up just like it did here. So two numbers multiplied together give you 12y squared. Two numbers added together that give you 8y, and the x will show itself later. Okay, so that's it for 6.2a. We'll continue with example 6 and a little tweaking there for 6.2b.